Okay, so here's a couple 3D printers that I use. This is one type. The model name is Creator Pro from FlashForge. And what it's doing is printing a ABS part. So the part is probably about maybe a third of the way complete. It's got a build base to it. You can see in there, and it's actually building a part right on top of that. What makes this printer a little bit different from some of the other ones is it's got a build plate in it. It's got a heated build plate, which is good for ABS plastic. ABS plastic, if it cools too quick, will actually warp. So what it tries to do is tries to keep it warm. And it's all self-contained too. So it's got a lid on top. It's got a door in the front. It's actually fairly warm inside in order to keep the ABS plastic from shrinking or cooling too quick, which will make it shrink and make the part warp. So that's one way of handling it. And the way this works is it's going off in an XYZ axis. You can actually see that from the very top. So you have some motors over here which actually move that back and forth, and then left to right. And then what it needs to do is when it's building a layer, it needs to go down to the next layer, that build plate will actually drop down a little bit and puts on the next layer. So where does it get the material from? So what we're looking at here are two extruder heads for two different types of material that it could use. And it actually feeds filament from two spools. And we can see these spools in the back of the printer. So right now it's printing off the white spool, which is this one over here. We have a gray one that it'll print from too if we program it to do so. And that's what it does. It feeds that spool material through these tubes up here. And then it extrudes that through a heated print head up here, a very specific amount for a very specific diameter, and deposits it in layers, one right after another. So this is another kind of printer. This is my ANYCUBIC printer. It's a Kossel type printer. Works a little bit differently. Some of the similarities are that it also feeds from a spool. So you can see the spool down there. And what that does is it feeds into this motor over here, the stepper motor. These are all stepper motors. And it feeds it through this tube down here into a print head, very similar to the other print head. You can only print one color at a time. But the thing about this material that it uses here is that this is PLA. PLA is a little bit more brittle plastic. I shouldn't say brittle, but it's a little bit more durable, a little bit stiffer. So if you need a part that doesn't bend, this is probably a pretty good material to use. You notice that this printer is not enclosed, and it's kind of open to the air, and it's got a little bit different way of doing it. PLA could be cooled really quickly. So what it does is it has a cooling fan in the back of that. It actually cools the material as soon as it gets deposited. And this builds the same way as the other printer does. It just builds layers. But the thing about the three motors over here, it allows it to, amongst all three of these motors, to build not only in the XY axis, but also in the Z axis too. So every time it builds a layer, it actually moves up a little bit and continues on. So it's still a 3-axis printer, but it's kind of operated in a little bit different way. So this is PLA. This is ABS. ABS needs to have a little bit of a kind of an oven in a way. It's all enclosed, so it needs to keep it nice and warm. This doesn't have to be as warm. So there are a little bit of some advantages to either one. And I kind of use both of these printers to print the parts we need to use for prototyping.